Welcome to Between Generations.
Yo, Mahmoud.
Yo, Mo, what's up? What's happening?
Habibi, man. I always get excited when you and I come together. We're cousins, but we don't connect as often as we'd like just because life takes us for unexpected turns and twists.
Absolutely, my man, absolutely. You know it.
And every time we come together, Mahmoud, we share so much about just our life. We talk about a variety of different topics, and we love having these conversations. And we decided, why not create a platform for our people? When I say our people, I'm talking about children that come from immigrants, right? First generation,
Yes,
maybe the
yes,
second generation.
yes.
Um, so many generations now, right? I mean, our generation are having generations, and it is a beautiful thing, but it is also one that can be very different, right? And what works for one person may not necessarily work for another person. And before we even get to all that, let's first introduce who we are. Mahmoud, I'm gonna throw it to you first, man.
Yes,
Tell
absolutely,
the
man.
beautiful people who you are, who this beautiful soul that I'm gonna be talking
Ah,
to about life
thanks,
is.
Habib Albi, Mo, wallahi. Thank you. Yeah, so my name is Mahmoud Mousa. I'm a lot of things apparently, but yeah, I just recently became a dad, and that is the
Alf
milestone.
Mabruk, man.
Allah
Alf
يبارك
Mabruk.
فيك حبيبي.
Yes,
So yeah,
yes.
my son is 58 days today, so it's very, very early.
Mm, mm.
Yeah, but I'm very blessed. I'm a father now, which is something I'm still kind of like getting to grips with. I'm also an engineering manager. I am a software engineer. I'm also a mechanical engineer by education, but that's a whole story we can get into. I am based in Sydney most of the time, but now living in South Korea. We're going back to Sydney next year. So that's just like a brief thing about me. What about you, man? You want to introduce yourself too?
Yes, yes. Muhammad Fattah, also known as Mo to the Western world, but Mo Fattah, based in San Diego, originally from New York, New Jersey area. I spent the first half of my career as a account executive in the sales world. I was cultivated into sales when I was younger, and then transitioned into tech, specifically software implementations. And now I have my own company doing software implementations, specifically Salesforce and other cloud-based platforms. Um, Mahmoud, that was a brief intro. I want to get a little deeper, man, because I've always been impressed with not just you, but your experience, right? I think not aside from us being cousins, we share very similar experiences. We both moved when we were younger. I think
Yes.
you much younger than me.
Yes.
And those experiences, I think, have sort of brought us to this moment of we talk about anything and everything, right? And that's what I love connecting with you. And we decided to kind of just bring this out to the platform. But to get a little bit deeper with you, man, your
I always,
journey, multiple
yeah, man.
countries.
I really always found it fascinating that we can connect on this like deep level, although like yeah, we do have obviously similarities in our experience, but man, we grew up so far away from each other. But it's
You
just
did.
yeah,
You did.
it's wild, yeah. So I think what Mo is referring to is that I've been traveling a lot. So basically, I was born in Saudi Arabia, which is something that Mo didn't know, but it's a thing, yeah.
I just found out. I was like, had a horrible, horrible cousin. I blame my mother. Yeah, mama, I blame you.
So yeah, my parents lived in Saudi Arabia for 12 years. Me and my brother and sister, we were all born there, and then we moved back to Egypt. So yeah, I grew up in Egypt. I grew up in Cairo, in the streets of Cairo, in Nasr City, and
Mm,
I was a very nerdy boy. I got really good scores in high school, and I got a scholarship to
mm,
study in Malaysia. So in 2009, actually, early 2009, yeah, I moved to Malaysia. I stayed there until 2016. I did my mechanical degree, my mechanical engineering degree there. After that, I went back to Egypt. That was 2016, yeah. And then 2016 until like 2018, I was in Egypt. I was trying to get like a decent life there. Things didn't work out, sadly. It's a whole new topic. But yeah, that didn't work out very well. And then I moved to Australia. I immigrated to Australia. I stayed in Australia from 2018 till 2024. Yeah. February 2024 is when I got married, and we moved to South Korea here. My wife is Korean, so we've been here for almost 2 years now, and we're moving back to Australia next year. So yeah, I've been through a lot of places, lots of homes, lots of houses, lots of people, lots of cultures. So yeah,
Isn't it awesome? Like, is it
it's
like, hasn't
beautiful.
that,
It's very
right?
beautiful. Yeah, it's
It's
beautiful.
it's contributed to who you are.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying that's the only thing that can ever contribute it, right? You can always be based where you are and always do it, but it's just one of the beauties about our experiences, the unknowns, and a little bit about my experience. I was back east in Jersey. I was offered to relocate to Southern California, and I took the opportunity. I kind of ran with it and never looked back. And that experience, in addition to many other experiences prior to that, one that just comes to mind, and Mahmoud, I know me and you have always spoken about this, was my experience in college where I was traveling to the south of Lebanon to be in like the
Yeah.
Palestinian refugee camps, and we would just spend the summers in the actual camps, and we would just empower these children by teaching them
Mm,
English because the exam that is administered in south of Lebanon is administered in English, and these children do not understand English. So that is a single point of failure. So with coupled with that and moving across, etc., um, has always introduced new levels and new layers to life. So one of the things Mahmoud, you and I always talk about is, and I always kind of told you was like, man, our parents set us up, right? And I say that in the sense of, right, they this is to start. They did the best they can, man. Allah
they,
khalihum,
they did.
our parents, regardless of what background you come from, know that our parents did the best, right? They did the best they can.
Like,
But we grew up in a different world, right? We are
very
dealing with
different
different
world, man.
challenges,
Yeah.
right? Different challenges. Sometimes we can relate to our parents for some things, and sometimes we cannot. Hence the name Between Generations, right? So,
To
Mahmoud,
mind
really
the
quick
gap.
for you, mind the gap. You got to mind the gap.
To mind the gap.
And we'll explain that a little bit more, right? And
Yeah.
we'll explain what really the definition of mind the gap means. But talk to me a little bit, man. Like with the things I spoke to you about, right? I was like, they set us up. They just, they didn't set the right expectations. They sold us the beauty side of it and didn't really level it out with the reality. Do you and have you experienced that?
Yes, absolutely. I think it's a cultural thing. Maybe because we are both from Egyptian backgrounds, we have this like this push the kids to do stuff kind of thing, and then we obviously have this very traditional um yeah path where you just like, okay, you do this and then you get married and you have kids and this and this and this, and that's where you're being kind of like encouraged and pushed to get into. Um, but I think there is a lot of things that you only understand when you grow up to become like an adult, and then slowly you get to see your parents in a different way. Like, oh yeah, so that's why they were saying no to this, or that's why we couldn't do that, or that's why they said that. And then there's the other aspect which was we try to talk about here, which is basically all the other things that they missed. And I really think the things that they haven't talked about, it's not because that they were hiding it, but I really think, oh man, this is gonna get me in trouble. I hope my parents are not listening. But I really think the communication has not been, yeah, it's not very like, yeah. Look, it's not, nobody has sat me down and said, here is what's going to happen. Here is what matters. Here's what you should, this just never happened. There was a lot of exploration, like I was just 18 years old and I moved to another country, and now like Mango's in the other room. And if that happens to Mango, I'll sit down. We will have a talk. I never
Mm-hmm.
had talk, man,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and so yeah, a lot of things I had to figure out on my own. And again, I really think our parents did the best they can. I've come to understand what they were working with to bring us up. And it's vastly different from what I was working with to grow up as an adult and what I am working with to like raise my son. So I've come to appreciate what they managed to do with what they had. But I really think there was a big gap in communication where the expectations. It sounds so weird, but the expectation settings of life just kind of somebody missed the class. You know what I mean? Yeah,
Hmm.
man, that's how I feel. What do you think?
I agree. I mean, I couldn't agree more. You know, our parents, and we will keep repeating this, they did the best they could, but really, I think the outcome is knowing that people, whether you are in the same generation or not, things it's not a clear cut recipe, right? What makes you happy doesn't make someone else happy. That goes for parents and children. What made you happy doesn't make your child happy, and that's why there's a lot of rifts between generations, between parents and children. I mean, growing up, me and my mother was, again, she's a New York woman through and through, but she would be out of the house from say 6 a.m. She'd come back by 5:30. She would cook meals, and then we would immediately transition into homework, chores or whatever it is. And I think life just goes, and I think that has worked. That worked for that generation, right? Me and my sister, like, we are very close, and when we were younger, we were glued to each other because that's all we had, and it worked, right? I trusted her. She looked out for me. I looked out for her. We didn't have the distractions that it is now. But I say that because if that same way of raising children applied to children these days, I think the outcome could be completely different. We're dealing with different things. We're dealing with completely different things.
Yeah,
So
I
my
agree.
experience it has been very similar. I learned a lot of things from my own experiences. When you say, a class or a course was missed, man, the whole education was missed from that perspective, right? The whole education of setting expectations was missed. Listen, we come from a background where it is mohandis, doctor, right? A
Oh,
doctor, an
you better be
engineer,
my لازم اخلص يلا هتفشل.
uh, right away, right away. And that world has changed too, right? The career paths have changed from that. So my experience has been very similar. And going back to what you were saying about your parents, I think it was out of fear. I think it was out of not knowing how to guide a conversation. For example, you know, um, whether it may be sex, whether it may be financials, whether it may be relationships, whether that may be careers, whatever the conversation was, I feel like if they opened up the conversation and the topic, it'll make us more curious. And I don't know if that would have been the result, right? I don't know if my dad and mom sat me down and talked to me and said, hey, instead of just blindly spending your money, why don't you put at least 20% of whatever you're making aside, right? In relationships, like for example, going back to, Ahna Muslimin, so we go back to the Quran, whatever your belief may be, there's always a reference about life in these religious books. So in the Quran, I believe there's that saying, right, that says if a girl and a guy are in a room together alone, the devil is present, right? Like just having conversations like that gets, in my opinion, the curiosity more towards education rather than the actual act of doing, right?
Right.
Um,
Excuse me. I think it was a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said that happens.
oh, so then,
Man, I wanna bring it back to that because I think it's just to start with before I forget. It's crazy that you said that about your mom, and your mom is a great woman. I really love her. But man, my
Allah
mom did the
يخليك.
same thing. My mom woke up at 4:30 a.m. She had to commute an hour and a half to get to her work. She would pre-cook dinner, and then she would go to work and come back. And then we would be at home waiting. Exactly. That's how me and my brother and sister got really close because we would go home first and spend the time together, and then they will come. My mom and dad will come, and then we will eat dinner, pre-cooked dinner, which she would finish cooking and we eat it, and then we spend time with homework. So it's just wild how like similar the experiences was. So I really wanted to highlight that. The one thing that you said about them having fears about talking, I agree. I think that's a very big factor. And then the other thing as well is I just think they were very overwhelmed. I mean, think about it, man. Like I work from home, right? And comes back to what you're saying. It's very different. I work from home most of the time. I'm an early person, so I'm up at 6:30. I think you are the same as well.
Mhm.
I'm on my laptop by 8 or 9, depending on the time difference. In the morning, I have this like maybe an hour to spend, hopefully later, with my son and with my wife. And I will work most of the time from home, and I will go to the office 2 or 3 times a week. And I usually limit my commute to 40 minutes, right? Because I know that will just consume me mentally and emotionally and everything. And the thing is, we have the option to do that. They didn't. So no,
Mhm.
I just, while I just can't imagine my mom having any mental or emotional energy to have a talk with her son,
Mhm.
you know? Because,
Yeah.
man, life was just so tough. And aside from that is the culture. I
Yeah.
really think it
Yeah.
wasn't in the books. It was just not something that happened to them. Their parents didn't do it with them, and consequently, just never crossed their mind to do. And
Mhm.
we know better. When the reason why we know better is because look, I can look up anything now with Google, with ChatGPT or whatever it is, and I can read a lot of books. It's a different world. It's a different thing.
Yeah.
So it's yeah,
Yeah. And sometimes I ask my mom too. I'm just like, why wasn't there any balance in expectation? So, for example, when she's like, oh, like what and stuff, I'm like, well, listen, like, number one, setting expectations of just being in relationships. Growing up, no one was blinded to the relationship that their mother and father had. Okay. Some of us come from a household of a broken household. Some of us come from a background that's a very loving and supportive family. Come from backgrounds that maybe they don't know. I come from a background of like my mom and dad were very different, and I think they knew that. But the common denominator was
the kids.
me and my sister and my brother, right? I mean, we're the common denominator. So, um, growing up, we weren't blinded to that, and subconsciously, I think we pick up a lot. We pick up a lot from our parents subconsciously, man. We don't think it and we don't know it, but we have. Um, so sometimes I ask my mom that, and she's just like, "Well, it was just like you said, like it was just busy, and things were different, and this was kind of what worked for us." And I don't blame her for that, but I think seeing now us having children, Mahmoud, right, and now seeing our friends having children and our siblings having children, there are things that we unconsciously pick up from
Real.
these and it can be very negative in our life, right? It could be not
Yes,
I mean, yes, it could be negative, but it can alter the potential outcome, right?
100%. You
So
know, like you, if my mom and dad are listening, just please don't get upset, please. Just don't. But look,
we love
I
you.
we love you very much, but we gotta talk, okay? We need to do this. So speaking of which, I'm gonna share something. When my wife got pregnant, I freaked out. I freaked out because of that. Like, I maybe like a almost maybe 6 to 9 months before my wife got pregnant, I have been very aware. Um, I don't even know how I got there, but I was very aware of how there were some things in my household that has affected the way I see the world, and that wasn't the case when I was in my 20s. But again, I don't remember how I got into that, but I was into it, and I remember reading books about how the effect and so on. But when my wife got pregnant, I was freaking out because like, oh my God, like that's I can see how the reactions was super well intended, but I can also see the consequences in
Mm,
me. Again, I love you so much and I understand everything that's happened and I have absolutely no bad feelings in my heart. But I can see. And then now that I'm about to be in your shoes, I was scared shit. And I
mm,
had a talk with a counselor that I usually speak to her, not very regularly, but I scheduled like a couple of meetings with her. I was look, this is happening. Here is what I see with what they did, and here's what I see it happen to me. And I don't know, like what else was there that I don't know that I now need to know because I don't want to repeat the whole experience again. And I now need to have wise eyes wide open to be able to do this. I remember she was asking me some questions like, all right, like I was just asking like, I want to make sure that we are raising him the right way. All right. And then she was asking me, these guys, you're always very like that. Anyway, what is the right way? I was like, right, what is the right way? I was like, we better
They're
define
just
it.
doing discovery. They're just doing
Yeah,
discovery.
exactly. You're doing discovery. Yeah, discovery in my mind. Of course. Why not? Anyway, what is the right way? And I couldn't answer, you know? And it took us a while to work through that. Like, what do you mean the right way? So does that mean that they raised you the incorrect way? And I just said, no. I just mean that there were some things that had an impact on me. And the things that, the main thing that she kind of like really stressed with me is that you're never going to be perfect as a parent. And you have to accept that. And that you have to, in the literature, you mentioned this a lot as well, which is good enough parenting. You have to do your best, but you have to understand you're never going to be perfect as a parent. The child is never going to be perfect as a child. So don't put too much expectation on them, which here's like right there, And one of the things, for example, just briefly, I remember telling her that my mom, and this is a very Egyptian thing, my mom used to be, if I go to a test and I score 49 out of 50, and I did that a lot, I was a really smart kid. But every single time that happened, we would spend hours talking about what happened to that one point that I missed. And man, that has scarred me. This is real stuff right there. That really has scarred me. It's not easy. And this is me, this is my brother, this is just how we grew up. Those are the expectations that were based on us. Like, how dare you lose one mark? What happened? Let's talk about it. It was never, you did great. Let's celebrate. Okay, sometimes it was. Let's not, not always, but a lot of times it was like, what happened? Let's talk about it. And that was tough.
Mahmoud, I want to bring that up. I mean, obviously we have the same grandmother, which is why things happen generationally, right? When you take a look at our grandmother, and correct me if I'm wrong, just because, Teta Allah Yarhamha, she lived, she was obviously in Egypt. She was pretty, what's the word? Very assertive, very,
Oof.
very
Oh, yeah.
demanding,
Hell yeah.
very, right? Very, I am the boss.
Oh, hell yeah.
And she,
Hell yeah.
right? And she wanted nothing but excellence because she grew up in an environment where she didn't know how to read and write, and she didn't want that for her children. And she
For her
had
8 children, like 8
her
kids.
eight kids, and out of those 8 children, 5 are girls.
Yes. Yes. That's right.
Right? So she especially didn't want her female, children, her daughters, to grow up and even be remotely similar to how she was kind of in a position where she wasn't necessarily empowered.
That is very
And
true.
things stem from it
Man,
unconsciously.
that's so true. And like, speaking of like being appreciative and understanding, my grandfather, her husband, worked in a printing mill all his life, and he got lung cancer
I'm
because of
learning so
exposure.
many.
Oh my God, you didn't know this?
I'm learning so much about my own family and history. Sorry, but continue. He worked in a printing mill.
In a printing mill, and back in the days, they used to print like the books, like stuff like that, right? And he used to inhale a lot of ink, and he got lung cancer, and he passed away. And I remember my mom tells me this all the time. He was rarely at home. Like when they used to print stuff, like whether it's newspapers or books, if like there is a busy season, let's just put it in our language, if there's a busy season, he wouldn't show up for weeks. So my grandma had to do it. Like, I think her personality was also aligned that way, but man, like, she had to man up. 8 kids, 5 ladies, they have to be able to take on the world. And education was just, like, again, we take this shit for granted. Of course my child is going to be educated, right? Of course I had a good education. It's going to be fine. But for them, it wasn't like that. They had to be on top of things. It's different.
No, it is different. And they didn't know any better. And again, they did the best they could. And I'm very grateful for the positions that they took. I just don't think it's going to work going forward. I think we have reached a point in generational history where I'm not saying break the cycle, but I am saying break the cycle in some areas, right? I think a lot of us get caught up in culture versus religion, or maybe just habits that the families have, or just our surroundings, right? And going back to some of those expectations when you were talking about, when your wife was pregnant, for me, I think one of the biggest I would say, learning lesson was, when I met my wife, right? And I love my wife very much. And the reason why she's my wife is because she possesses so many unique qualities, and she puts up with my bullshit, which is like, a lot. Uh, I'm a Gemini through and through. Everything about Geminis,
Same
I'm a
here.
Gemini. We are a good, yeah, yeah, yeah. God bless our wives. I will tell you that right now. And and for me, it was a situation where I didn't think about anything when I was dating and engaged to my wife, right? It was we enjoyed each other, and we got along very, very well. And we knew that we wanted to spend the rest of our lives together, especially me. I knew it within the first, say, two dates, man. Like, that's all it takes, right? I mean, obviously there's a lot of conversations that happen, on the back end of that. But within two times I've seen her, I was like, I want this woman to be my wife. Now, you can love someone as much as you want to love them. Okay. The reality of the matter is that when you get married, or if you're in a long-term situation, okay, things tend to change, right? I'm not going to get into why things change, because who the hell knows why things change? I don't know why things change. But they change, right? And that's just because you are now establishing a life together, and maybe some of the things that didn't bother you before bother you, and then once you get past that, then another layer comes into play, which is children. And for example, when I had my daughter, I was never given advice by my parents. Not one piece of advice. They didn't, sit me down, be like, listen, you're going to become a father, and this is what you should, focus on. This is what your priorities are. So for me, when I had my daughter, I thought that the priority was my daughter, when in reality, the priority had to be my wife. And I wasn't clearly seeing that, right? Like, I was like, okay, baby, like, you're crying, like, I'm there. You shit your pants, I'm there. Like, you're there. But in reality, what I learned over that course of a year or two, was that what you think is needed, or what you think is wanted, sometimes it's not. And the only way to hash it out is by communicating. And when you come from a family and generations that do not know how to communicate, there are things that you must be self aware about and force yourself out of that comfort zone if you want things to work. Because once everyone gets complacent and we do not communicate, it's not good. And I will tell you, as someone personally that shuts down when I just feel something, I shut down, right? I'm like, I hear something I don't like, and we get into a little argument. Bah, I'm out. I'm out mentally. Mentally, I'm out.
I know.
It's horrible. It's horrible, man. Right? My wife hates that about me. But Mahmoud, what are like some of the things out there that, like, we're so busy. When we're saying be self-aware, what it like? How does that look like for you? Like, have you done anything that is can contribute to, hey, let me take a step back, let me figure out things, let me work through things in my mind. How do you work through all those emotions? It's a lot of emotions, man. It's a lot
Yeah.
of emotions.
We go for walks. I think walks help a lot. And then I, I go for walks and I try to read more often. That's what works for me. But
Mm.
man, I think that what you just said there is so difficult nowadays because we are always bombarded with so many different stuff. And I've been paying
Especially
attention.
this.
Yeah, that's what I meant. That's what I meant. Yeah. Like the phone and YouTube. And yeah, it's just, and I've been like paying attention to what I listen to and what I watch. And a lot of times there's this idea of like action per information. Like, what kind of action are you going to make out of this YouTube video? It's usually just nothing. Usually just being entertained. And I found out that our brains are like struggling, really, really, really struggling to process anything because we don't give them chance. And yeah, sometimes I try to go for walks. Now that Mango's here, Mango is the nickname of my son, just in case if it doesn't make any sense to everyone listening.
A
But yeah,
delicious nickname.
delicious indeed. What's her name? What's the nickname again?
I was saying mango. Mango is a delicious
Mango's.
nickname indeed.
Absolutely, yes. I didn't. It was cut off there. But yeah, I would put Mango in a carrier and I would just go for a walk. And I try not to take my phone with me, or if I do take it, I don't look at it. That helps a lot. But man, going back to what he said, because I want to comment on it, communication is just so tough. It's hard, and I think one of the things that I learned is when you are like a child, you learn what a man is by watching your dad, and you learn what a woman is by watching your mom, and you learn what a relationship is by watching them together. And it's really tough for a child to learn how to communicate if he has never seen it happen in front of them, you know? So here I am, I guess. So you just have to go through, like you said, you just have to do it. You just have to learn how to do it, and you just have to keep trying and taking steps back and understanding and trying. And
it's so hard though. Like you guys, I know you keep saying it. It's so hard, and it's one of those things where sometimes people don't have time to actually think. Doesn't it sound crazy?
It does sound crazy, right?
We don't have time to think, right? We're in the car, we're listening to music, or we're listening to an audible. We're in the bathrooms, doom scrolling. We're on meetings all day. While we are multitasking on these meetings, our brains are overloaded.
That's very true.
No processing time. For me, like the one thing I'll share, and I don't do it as often as I would like at all, obviously, is praying. Like that has been like the one thing, and again, it is something that I've for many years been working on improving because it's unfortunately a rarity these days. But I find it the most tranquil thing, and what it does is it just completely shuts down your mind and allows you to be in that moment, right? Because not only are you reciting verses, but you are showing gratitude, right? Isn't one of the purposes of praying is showing gratitude and being thankful and stuff like that? And sometimes we don't do that enough, right? And it's not just in the form of praying, it could be in other forms. But, Mahmoud, this is why, again, going back to the beginning, we wanted to create this platform. We want to talk to individuals that have lived through this. We want to talk about things that we, again, don't think expectations were set. Relationships, marriage, sex, finances, education, drugs. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And it's one of those things that we're not therapists. We are not solving anyone's problems. This is a platform to just talk and really a chance to just get what's on our minds out there in the world to actually hear how people go through it. Our problems, although some can be unique, but if you think, we talk about a lot of the differences, right, in the past 33 minutes about generations. If we take a second and talk about what's similar is that we all want better, and we all want better for our children. And anytime we have children or future generation, we pour our entire world into these little humans, and the outcome is very different. The outcome could be you have a child that ends up growing up and just leaving you at a young age doing your thing, right? For example, you, Mahmoud, right? 18, you are not a negative thing. It's just the reality of it, right? One abroad and stuff like that. And then you have those that, in my opinion, a lot of parents cripple their children. We talk about expectations not being set, but we're also a lot of habits that we are getting ourselves and kids used to make these things that we're going to talk about more difficult. right? For example, we are Egyptian, we're Middle Eastern. Our mothers spoil the living shit out of us. I don't know how more to emphasize that. And I'll tell you for all my fellas, for all the fellas out there listening, I will tell you that what that does is it creates false expectations for you. As mothers, we grew up where as a man, there's no other woman in this world that's going to love you unconditionally, unlike your mother, right? Like you could slap the shit out of your mom, right? And then she'll be like, "Oh, Habibi, tabligh, give me a hug, I love you," and then she'll make you dinner, right? You do that to the wife, your ass gonna be in jail. Before that, her dad and brother are probably gonna beat the shit out of you, right? So that was a very drastic example.
That was a wild example. I have to say.
Wild example, but your mother will love you unconditionally, and a lot of my homegirls will tell me, "Hey, there's a lot of son qualities to this, right? They have children. They're like, I feel like I have two sons, right? I feel like I'm doing this. I feel like I'm doing that." And then there's an opposite side to it where, like, maybe the father treats the girl like a princess and gets her used to certain things, not setting the right expectations for his daughter, not setting the right expectations for her son, right? And again, we're not here to solve any problems, but the reality of the matter is that all of these things will impact your life, right? Whether you like it or not. And having a space to talk about that is some type of community. And I feel like we lack community right now, right?
If you're
What community
listening,
do we have?
if you are listening, you have been to the same experience of like 49 out of 50 and being scolded. So please join our community because you have found your people. Trust me, you have just found your people.
You have, in addition to that, I'll also share that if you grew up in a oppressed household, this is also the community for you. If you grew up on maybe a not religious household, this is the community for you. This is the community of generations. What are we? We're millennials? We're millennials?
I believe so, right? Because we
I think
just
so,
turned
some shit like
24
that.
Gen Z, I think so.
I think so. So we're in that generation, but we're gonna have people from the baby boomers generation and this generation to come on this podcast and share. A lot of my friends are much older, right? From a young age, I've associated myself with much older people. That was naturally just through careers and just through life, and I've learned so much from them. And I have friends that are parents to high schoolers, and I swear, man, they are going through it, right? Because, you know, I personally coach high school football, and I have for the past, I would say, I don't anymore, but the past 4 or 5 years I have, and seeing what a public high school here in the States goes through was mind boggling. And I went to a public high school right in Jersey. It was mind boggling. So parents are struggling to have a connection with their children. They don't realize what's happening in those schools. They don't realize what's happening in that group of friends. They don't realize what's happening at their recreational sports. There's so much that happens, man. Um, so Mahmoud, I'm excited to keep coming together, man. I love you. You're a brother, you're a friend, and you're definitely someone that shares a lot of experiences. We're going to come back together at least once a month and we're going to talk about these topics, right? The between generations, mind the gap, the setting expectations, and biggest thing, me and Mahmoud talk about it all the time. We want to talk to you, right? We want to talk to the people out there. This is not just about me and Mahmoud. We just find a lot of similarities, and we love each other enough that we would do this together.
That's right. That's right. So whenever you're listening, I'm gonna leave a link to join our Discord there. And once you join the Discord, if you want to come on the podcast, you let us know. Join us in the Discord, talk about all these things, and yeah, if you're listening and anything resonates with you, you have just found your people. That's what the Discord is.
Yeah. We can't wait to talk to you all next. Stay tuned for the next session. As always, mind the gap.